Welcome to Drum Chat Hang. Today's guest is going to be Ben Bradley of the Brett Kissel Band, as well as many other Alberta-based country acts. I'm just going to wait for the room to populate a bit here, and then we'll start her up. All right, welcome. This is episode 3 of Drum Chat Hang. It's a new project that I've been working on for the last little while, bringing you some of the best drummers in the industry, both in Canada and from all over the world. So today, my guest is going to be Ben Bradley. I'm going to bring him into the chat right now. He's wondering how to do that. So I'm going to do it right now. All right. Okay, Ben, I think you're not on a, if you're on a computer, you got to go and get on a cell phone and come back in. It's not letting me add you, or leave the chat and come back in and see if that works. Hmm. Having issues. All right. Let's see if this works. All right. Sorry about that. Little technical difficulties. Again, this is Ben.
Hey!
I'm trying to figure. Ben, welcome.
How's it going, eh?
Bad. How are you?
Oh, just living the dream.
Living the dream. Now, where are you at right now?
I'm at home in my drum dungeon.
The Drum Dungeon.
Yeah.
And that's in Brooks, correct?
Just outside of Brooks, yeah.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Beautiful Brooks.
Yeah,
the
man.
heartland of Alberta.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, welcome to the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. And again, thanks for making time for this. I know you're a busy man. You're probably one of the busiest drummers in Canadian music right now, especially in the country side of things. So
Yes.
This is rare to have you home in a situation like this.
Yeah, compared to last year, it's been a nice little break, having more time with the kids.
Yeah, that's true, eh? I guess. Yeah, last year was that record-breaking tour, right?
Yeah, apparently. We did.
Tell us about it.
we did 3 months in the springtime, January, February, March, which was like close to, I don't know, 50 or 60 shows, something like that. And then we did another 55 shows in the fall. And in the middle, we had a super busy summer. And I think it rounded out to be like 160 shows for the year,
wow.
something like that. Something like that. It was crazy. So I had to reintroduce myself to my wife and my kids. So they knew who I was.
I bet,
again.
hey?
Yeah. That was a bit much.
Yeah. That would be one of those situations where, yeah, it's like a reintroduction to the family. Yeah, hey, I'm Dad.
Yeah.
I'm your husband. You may not remember me or have seen me elsewhere on TV and such.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, no, it was good.
That's definitely a challenge for sure.
Yeah,
that's
man.
definitely a challenge. Yeah. So all of those dates were pretty much Canada then?
Yeah, there was like two down in Nashville. They were just showcases that weren't really part of the tour, but
right.
Canadian festivals in the summertime, and then like every nook and cranny in Canada from the tours, as far north as I want to say, was it Juneau? No, it was Dawson City, and even one further north than that, and Inuvik.
Wow.
And as far east as St. John's, and as far west as Vancouver. So.
Well, if that's not enough to make you question things,
yeah,
as far as like, oh my God, why do I do this? Because it would be, I can't even imagine how taxing that would be on your soul. But at the same time, really giving as well, like feeding your soul as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's props to you guys for doing that. That's pretty rare.
Yeah, we're a small lucky bunch that got to be a part of it. Like and thanks to Brett for having the craziest idea. Like, I don't know if he made any money on it or if it was a smart business move, but it was sure something that I'll never forget. That's for sure.
It was a brilliant business move. If you think about it, everything else that kind of lined up since then is a result of that tour. I guarantee it. Getting the name out there and busting. That guy can hustle.
Yeah, man.
And good for you guys to be the guys that are able to like keep up with that, because that is a huge demanding thing, both on yourselves and on your families. Like that's huge.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
So, and I'm sure he realizes that.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, he's got a family of his own. That's like, he's got 3 kids now, and I think he wants like 15 or something like that. So, he's really made it easy on us to do whatever we can to include our families, which it's huge, because if our wives aren't comfortable at home and feel like they're part of the team, they're definitely not going to be okay with us being gone for 75% of the year, right? So it was it's a good it's the perfect camp to be a part of if you're a family man,
Yeah, it's the family camp.
Yeah, really. Yeah. You're kind of shunned if you don't have a kid,
Yeah. Yeah, you don't hear that very often in the rock world at all.
Yeah,
what, you don't have kids? What?
What a loser.
Yeah. They think there's something wrong at that point.
Yeah.
So what's your latest projects then? What do you got on the go right now? Like,
well, I've been
besides Brett,
doing the odd thing with a band called Lion Bear Fox. Just got back from Fort Nelson. They did their
I saw that.
Their Northern Lights Festival. This is the first year they had music, and they went they went above and beyond. Like, it was crazy. Like, we had chartered planes taking us to and from the festival, and like there was no shortage of perks in this festival, and it was their first year, and they, and typically these things take a few years to get off the ground, but it seems like they're committed to making it work. So it was really cool to see and be a part of.
That's awesome. Now that band's based out of Calgary?
They're based out of Victoria.
Out of Victoria. Oh, yeah. Wow.
Actually, Victoria now they moved to the island, all 3 of them. So there were 3 different folk rock artists that resemble the traits of a lion, a bear, and a fox. And for somehow they ended up like running into each other, kind of when they were all at their brink with the music industry, and said, like, screw it, let's just form a band together. And they had kind of had these nicknames amongst themselves, and they just kind of came together about 6 or 7 years ago, and they haven't looked back. So,
Wow,
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
yeah.
So on a gig like that, are they sending you tracks to learn and then you just meet up for rehearsal and then go?
Well, actually, this one, a lot of their stuff is very light with drum kit. It's mainly synthetic drums or track drums or percussion on the albums. So I got the number 2 seat behind Matthew Atkins. So I was lucky enough to be behind him in the way things went. So he had played a bunch with them, and he kind of created his own drum parts for the live show. And I basically learned off of one of his live tapes, one of his live feeds, and just made my own charts and kind of just talked through a few things with the boys. And it's kind of also at the end, kind of like you start the song and it's just kind of heads up hockey a little bit, but also it's got its definite parts and super dynamic. It's simple parts, extremely effective, and like I said, so dynamic that it forces you to feel things. So it was really a fun thing. It's not like the boom smack that I'm used to with Brett and all the pop country, right? So
you're all right.
Yeah,
that's cool. That really, I bet that's a huge difference. Yeah, especially going from that, like you said, boom smack to the dynamics. That is a huge difference.
Yeah, like I was bringing
sure.
bringing mallets and shakers and like different cymbals to put on different drums and tambourines sitting on tom drums and like weird. Just Matthew Atkins came up with a million cool sounds that I basically just did my best to like mimic, do my own version of. So it was a fun experimental thing for me.
Is that the kind of situation you like best, when you're doing like a kind of on the fly kind of situation where the tracks are already done and then you can do the research with tracks that are already there? So you're pulling ideas off of that and then making it your own. Is that something you prefer, or do you prefer like no history, just walk into the gig and like go?
Well, yeah, I'm a like how I learned how to play the drums was basically just copying like the drummers that played on whatever songs I was asked to learn for that particular country artist. So when I was young, like late teens, that's basically how I learned to play the drum kit, is basically saying, okay, like take what you hear and do your best to just copy it note for note. So for me, my comfort zone is to just give me like MP3s and give me the least amount of audibles as possible. And I'll do my best to just mimic it perfectly. So it's a little bit outside of my comfort zone because there is the freedom, right? And it's like a potential of catastrophic failure because of lack of ability to create on the spot, but then also the potential of like magic. So
absolutely.
I think that it's a little bit more risk, but way more reward for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, and on that level too, I mean, there's like, I don't know, it doesn't, judging by the pictures I saw, which looked amazing.
Yeah.
Like especially that back shot from behind. I mean, that was not a small show, and it wasn't a small stage. So I mean, you probably got a lot of like creature comforts that you're used to with the Brett Kissel camp, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it was a great crew, great production. It was a Yamaha Maple Custom Absolute kit, which is like for me for live stuff, it's my favorite. And I sat down and it was like, because it was a chartered plane, I was told to kind of bring as little as possible. Bring the essentials, but so I didn't bring my snare like I normally do, and I didn't bring my cymbals like I normally do, so I didn't really know.
Ooh, that's scary.
Yeah, right.
That's super scary.
So I had my little briefcase full of, like I said, like the essentials, like the different noisemakers that I had to bring to create the sounds,
right,
as opposed to just sticks, right? So it was
man, that's brave. I mean, up there you never know what you're gonna get for background. Yeah. That's such a shot in the dark.
Yeah. Well, and actually it was kind of funny too, because in one breath they said bring your breakables, but in another breath they said, okay, well, watch the weight, because it's a chartered plane and there's a maximum allowance. So I said, well, screw it, I just won't bring the heavy stuff. I'm sure it'll be fine. And I get up there and all they had was for the cymbals anyway, they had crashes and a set of hi-hats. So I ended up using
wow.
an 18-inch crash for my ride cymbal, and then 2 smaller crashes. But it was actually fine because the music isn't too reliant on the ride cymbal anyway. So I think it's only used in 2 songs. And if anything, it was just less abrasive. It was just a little bit quieter.
Right.
So it worked out fine.
Yeah.
But again, one of those things where you just kind of have to roll with the punches, and it was great. It was a great night. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And are you doing stuff with Washboard Union still as well?
No, I've only ever kind of worked with them in kind of corporate situations where typically, like you said, Brett being the hustler, he's kind of the brains behind the operation when it's like, okay, we're going to do this show on the top of the mountain, and we're going to have 14 bands, and my band's going to back up everybody. And we're gonna come in on parachutes, and there's gonna be fireworks, and there's gonna like he's like just got all these crazy ideas. So so many times we've ended up in this situation where we have to learn like 60 songs because there's like 30 artists playing 2 songs each, and so it's which is good because like the resume looks better when you have all these different artists on the list because you've played.
That's just it. You're likely to get hired in different situations just on that alone, even if it's just one show, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's I haven't even seen them since the summertime, but every time we've worked with them, it's been a crazy amount of fun for sure.
Yeah, you don't have nearly enough beard hair to fully fit in that band on a full-time basis, though. We can admit that. That's a fair admit.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I was working on it because I was going for what you had there, and it had been like 3 months, and I looked in the mirror today, and I was like, you know what, you can almost see it, but it's not pretty, so I just shaved it off. So I might need another 9 months.
There's enough of us old fat bearded dudes around. We don't need any hustle from the good looking guys that still look like they're 25. All right. That market's already tapped.
Yeah.
Right on. So what's up for the summer? What do you got planned for the summer?
Well, because of last year and Brett's crazy ideas, we've kind of saturated the market in Canada, which means time to go elsewhere. So we've got some stuff lined up in the States, like not a whole lot, but the exciting things are we're going to Manchester, United Kingdom in May, and we're there for a few days, and then we go straight to Paris, France, play a festival there, and then I think we go straight to Nashville for a showcase and then home. So that's like a little bit of time away, which is kind of cool. New experiences, places I've never been.
Well, that's pretty rare for that scene too. You don't see that many like Canadian country artists actually going out there to those kind of spots.
Yeah, well, like I said,
not for quite a while.
Yeah, totally. Like Brett having the 47 children that he has, and no work in Canada left because he's saturated it. He's got to go elsewhere. So he's gonna
work in the farm. I don't know if he remembers how to work in the farm anymore.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good though. He's super motivated, and he's gonna crack whatever market he can get into. So
yeah, well, he's a hustler, man. He's a hustler. I remember meeting him. I met him on. I was asked to volunteer for Flood Aid, that big concert that we did here after the big 2013 flood, and my job was transport. So I had to pick up Loverboy, and I had to pick up this new guy, Brett. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And he was super talkative and super nice. And I was like, this kid seems pretty with it. And then, it's like, I swear to God, every single day after that, I saw his name somewhere or heard a song or something. And then I ended up working at the Stampede Board summer of 2014. And of course, ran into him and you guys as well all over the place. It's one of those things, like if you get the right guy in there who's driving the ship and who's really motivated, I swear there's absolutely nothing that can get in the way. Yeah. As long as that one person's totally there,
Yeah. Yeah, he's
Obviously,
definitely
talent has to be there too.
yeah, but I mean, like I said before, like when I was like first learning to play, you know, professionally, it was like basically the only criteria I put on myself, because I knew I wasn't like the most like flashy drummer, or I didn't have the most chops, but I could play time, I could play to a metronome, whatever. So I just said, okay, learn the song note for note and do your best to show up and execute that. And then the
Yeah.
first gig I did that way, it was not about being super talented. It was just about being, you know, a slave to the songs, a slave to the set list that was given to me. Like assuming that like the musicians that played on those albums and those songs that turned into hits, they probably knew what they were doing. So why try and change it? You know. So
Yeah, no need to reinvent the wheel. Yeah.
yeah, like being flashier doesn't mean the song is going to mean more. Like it's just like, so
No.
that was for me. Like it wasn't about like, oh, I'm the coolest drummer. I can do all these crazy things, and like I can do like you know, blues and all this crazy shit. When you know that's cool. Like I love that stuff, and ever
Yeah.
since I started playing, I wish that was me, right? But for me, because it's like, yeah, I got hired to do this gig, and I'm getting like $400, so I better do my best to just do my job, and that's play a
Yeah.
song, play the song. It's really not
That's
that
a maturity
complicated.
level, though. That's a mature thing. Like, not a lot of drummers, I get that. As soon as they get into the gig like that, they're trying to push almost their own flashy agenda or whatever into it. And then they wonder why they never get the call back. You know,
Yeah, well,
that's a huge thing.
yeah, and that's another. Yeah, like that's the thing. Like, I don't know if it was maturity. Yeah, okay, we'll go with maturity. But at the time, it felt more like uh, do whatever you can to like play the song. Like that was like the max of my capacity kind of thing when I first started playing on the road, right? And then it just
Yeah.
kind of started snowballing, and like you said, like having guys like Brett in the industry and artists that I've played for previously, recognizing that that was my goal, not to be the drummer, but like to perform the songs, you know. So
Yeah.
which gets me the work that I get. It's not because I can do all the rudiments, you know, at 160 BPM. It's because I can play 2 and 4, and
Yeah.
I just hit the crap out of it, so it makes it feel confident, you know. That's
Well, I think there's another thing in there too that you're missing too. The ability to hang and the ability to be comfortable and not, anybody could be a competent drummer and do the gig, but there's 24 hours of the day, and you gotta be socially okay too.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, that's a
yeah.
big
It's
thing.
especially being like last year, like you said, like you're
Hmm.
talking about making it comfortable for the families at home, but like
Yeah,
not like 9 months, like we figured it out. It was close to 9 months, including all the travel days and you know there and back kind of stuff. So
yeah,
outside of our own front doors for 9 months out of the 12, and so like you said, like 95% of that time, you're basically living with like we have like a 15-person camp with like
yeah,
7 in the band, and then there's like merch and video and photography and production manager and tour manager and stage manager and stage techs and like and everybody. It's just like Brett has a
yeah.
way. Brett has a way to like find the right people, and it's like
Hmm.
everybody has such a strong character. Like everybody could have their own TV show in their own rights, and
Yeah,
somehow we all like get along like we're brothers and sisters. Like it's super easy. It's like family, and it's not because each of us are boring and just minding our own business, staying in our own little corner. Like we're out there. Like we're all like big personalities in a way, and
yeah,
and I think it's because we believe in Brett. We believe in the project, and we put all of our priorities, especially when we're on the road. Like we put our priorities in that, and there's no
yeah,
personal agendas. We respect one another enough to you know mind our business when we need to and step out when we need to.
right.
We respect our band leader Justin Cutting. We respect like our 2 vocal coaches in the band, like Brendan Waters and Matthew McKay. like the two of them, between the two of them, we can figure out, like, we got a 7-person band, and I'm the only guy that doesn't have an amazing voice. Like, I have a terrible voice, and there's like six out of the 7 guys sing like birds. So it's like, okay, so how are we going to turn this song into an Eagles cover? Okay, and Maddie starts like pointing out who's going to sing what parts, and we all just kind of like stop and go, okay, yeah, because what he says is right, and we know to respect his views. And if anyone's
Maddie's great.
Yeah, and if anyone's going to question him, it's going to be Brendan, and it's more like, well, how about we do like a 7 instead of a 5th there, and then Justin, you do the 3rd, and it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense too. And I'm just sitting here like, okay, like
you're just like, yeah, you guys just do that. I'm gonna focus on my on what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like a super lucky situation for me, and I think we all feel very very similar. Like, we all have our strengths, and we all respect one another's strengths and are aware of their weaknesses, right? So it's a fun thing.
Well, speaking of Matty, he used to come into the shop. Like, I've known him for a really long time, and back when I was managing the drum department at Axe, he would always come in when he was playing with a couple other guys. I can't, off the top of my head, it's not drawing a blank.
Well, how many years ago?
It's right in front of my head, and why am I not?
So we played together. We played together with Aaron Goodwin, and then Craig Moritz, and then Gord Bamford.
Gord Bamford.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Gord Bamford era. Yeah.
Right.
And he used to come in all the time. Man, I can't believe how incredible he has become as a guitar player. Like, he's so musical. Yeah. And the stuff that he does with you guys, and the stuff that he's doing on the studio and other projects as well. It's just like, it's crazy how much of a full rounded, ideal guitar playing person that he's become. I'm blown away. And I tell him that every single time I see him. And I think every single time he thinks I'm blowing air up his ass, but but it's serious. It's absolutely 100% serious. Like, he is unbelievable now.
Yeah, man.
So, you know, I don't know where it's coming from, or if it's just a matter of playing all the time and being influenced by everybody and pushing. Because I mean, that's always the goal, is to play with people that are further down the line than you, to kind of push you. So.
Well,
now he's gonna have a hard time finding that now.
Yeah. So what I know about Matty, like, we started playing together when I was 17 and he was 18, and it was with Aaron Goodwin, who just had come down from Northern Alberta, ended up in my like, I was in grade 11. Aaron came down, he was in grade 12, and he ended up in my gym class, and I was living in St. Albert, Alberta, and that's like, that, not necessarily country. Like, it's kind of like, especially at the time, it was like And One basketball and like Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, and like, that was the cool stuff, right? So I remember Aaron walks into the gym class, and he's wearing like cowboy boots and tight Wranglers and a belt buckle, tucked in shirt, and a black cowboy hat. And we all just kind of, it was like a record stopping, and where it's like, what the hell, who's this guy? So I kind of like pulled him aside and said, okay, man, it's not Halloween. What's your deal? Like, what's going on here? So
he goes, look, man, I've got my lonely drum, and you're gonna find out about my lonely drum.
Yeah. So he said, well, I'm a country singer, and I came down from Fairview, Alberta, to pursue country music in and around Edmonton. So I was like, sweet. Like, I was playing in a punk band with my brother and my cousin at the time, and I was like, sweet, I play drums. He's like, well, let's jam. So we got together, and it was just me and him, like, playing like the first 10 country songs I ever learned, or listened to for that matter. And then we needed a bass player. So him and Maddie had been in singing competitions together in their earlier years. So they crossed paths at one of these events, and they started talking, and then Maddie became the bass player in our band. And so we were a 3-piece, and and then we found Dylan Gillette, who is an artist in his own right now, and he became the guitar player. But he's very his energy on stage is very laid back, and so is his musicality. Like, super talented, but he's got a really like relaxed approach, where Maddie doesn't necessarily have that same thing. So we had a busy bass player and a relaxed guitar player. And Matty had a hard time singing while playing the bass. So him and Dylan ended up switching. Dylan ended up being a great bass player and could sing like a bird while playing bass. And Matty, you know the rest. And prior to that, like in those like forming years when I was learning these like Blake Shelton tunes and like Paul Brandt and Jason McCoy tunes, Matty was so efficient on the drum kit at that time in his life. He would basically like teach me the songs on the drum kit. So it was like he first started with drum kit, then he played bass in our band and we toured Alberta, and then he ended up being a guitar player, and he bought his first electric guitar when he was like 18 and then started like learning, and now he's a beast. And I think it has a lot to do with his musical upbringing. That's a big thing, but the fact that he is well aware of what his surrounding should sound like. So he knows where he fits.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Once you know the full surrounds and everything on each instrument, you can figure out where your spot is.
Yeah, totally.
That totally makes sense. Yeah. I knew that he was a drummer. He used to come into the shop, play on the electronic kits all the time. And every time I'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? You know? But he was better than me. He was always better than me. And I was always like, damn it, it's just not fair. I'm going to have to break both your legs because that's just the only thing that's going to even it out.
Yeah, he's a talented guy. He's a talented guy for sure.
Yeah. So you're playing Yamaha, right? That's your spot right now.
Yeah, man.
So tell us why, and tell us kind of give a rundown of the kid, I guess.
Well, it's a little bit dusty, but this is kind of.
Oh, you got it right there. Perfect.
So it's this is, like I said, my drum room, and I've been doing lots of construction, building all like the sound baffles and the shelving and all that, and so there's a little bit of sawdust floating around. So I put this ceiling up that's basically insulated boxes, and they're suspended on this beam and the outside wall. So shortly before I got the ceiling up, there was dust flying everywhere because I'm in a shop outside of my house that's like 30 by 30, and it's about 12-foot ceilings, and it's it's a wood shop. It's not like, it's not somewhere where you typically keep a drum kit, right? So I built this room inside the shop, and so now it's like I can play any time of day, and it's super quiet. Like no one can hear it in the house, and our closest neighbor is like, 600 meters away. So it's great.
Is that before or after the cows?
After. There's
the cows.
So out this back wall here, you'll have a few pens, a dugout that way, and then after our pens where our horses are, there'll be 60 Black Angus bulls, and then after that it's like a quarter section, and then after that is our neighbor's place. So there's lots of space and lots of opportunity to be loud for sure. So anyway,
that's awesome. I mean, that's got to be inspirational too for playing that kind of music as well. I mean, you walk out the door and boom, you're in the country.
Yeah,
and you're singing songs about the country. That would be, to me, like a perfect situation for that. That would be almost too much because you get too inspired, and then you'd be like, oh, this is so much.
Well, honestly, like I lived in downtown Calgary until I moved here with my wife. And it was like 17th Ave in Crowchild, and I was living in a house, and then I moved out here, and I was like, oh man, like I'm gonna miss like the amenities like Long McQuaid's and the Home Depots and stuff like that I was visiting regularly, and I got out here, and it was like 2 weeks later, I found myself doing absolutely nothing because I was so relaxed, and there was no distractions. So I didn't feel like this, like I need to go do something kind of energy like I was used to in the city. So
like you're missing out on something kind of thing?
Yeah, I got to get out and do something, right? So now I really have to make it like part of the day to get out here and practice, because otherwise it's so easy to just chill and not even watch TV, but just sit there and chill, talk with my wife, hang out with my girls, and do absolutely nothing. And it's like you look at your calendar and say, oh, I got this, and this to do today, and I better get it done. Otherwise, it's not going to get done. And then like,
Right.
I come out here and like I said, I know that I'm not disturbing anybody, because sometimes as a drummer, that's a big thing. I know I'm not disturbing anybody. I can play in the middle of the night. I'm not going to wake anybody up. It's huge, and I'm super grateful to have this space. So now that was totally sidetracked. Back to the drum kit. What I just got with it was this recording custom, the new line that was made in China, and it is unbelievable. Like I've played old recording customs and they're great, and I always found the kick drums were a little bit light, a little bit thin sounding. And now with these, they have these new weighted lugs on the kick drums. It gives a little bit more meat, and apparently it lowers the fundamental pitch of the shell. And
Really,
that's the science, and that's what they've done with the new hybrid oak series. They actually have these weights, like they have the outside lugs, and on the inside they have what looks like lugs, but they're just screwed to the lugs, and they're just for added weight in the shell. And the kick
like a slug of some sort.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's just like like I think it's just some sort of alloy that's got like a little extra iron in it, and it's just super heavy. So this kick drum is heavy, but it sounds like massive. It's a 24x14, so it's a big drum.
Oh wow!
And like the kick drum is like, it's got its own sound. Like it's got its own area code kind of a thing. So and I have a 13x9, 16x15, and 18x16, and those are said incorrectly and backwards. So it's 9x13, 15/16, 16/18. Depth by
It's said in Canadian terms.
Yeah.
Said in Canadian terms.
And I use the brass recording custom snare. So, and ever since I've had this kit, I've also got a maple custom kit from 2006. It's got the square hook lugs that like you just loosen them up, and then you can take the rim off, and the lugs come with it. Put the new head on, put on, and just a couple turns, and it's tight again. So that kit was like, it's still like unbelievable. I'm actually looking at it. It's like there's part of it there. So it's like it's called luminous white. So if it gets enough UV, if you put it in a dark room at night, it glows like fluorescent green. So that's not the reason I bought it, but it definitely didn't hurt the reasoning. So yeah. And that kit I have like 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and it's a 22-inch kick drum. And most often, actually, lately, kind of paying tribute to Steve Gadd, in most recording situations, I end up using that maple kick drum with these birch toms, because these
just to
toms,
give you more bite in the toms.
I don't know what the difference is exactly. Like, yeah, maybe a little bit more bite, but they just have this natural, like, kind of a scooped EQ sound, like they've already been like mixed. They got a perfect amount of attack, and they have a real clear note. And it's like a different kind of I find the maples have more of a growl, where the birch has a little bit more bite and more body. You know what I mean? So
yeah, totally.
These toms are just like, and Matty is the guy I work with a lot when it comes to like drum tones, because he's a drum Nazi and a great producer to begin with. So I'm excited every time I get to work with him, because he's like, okay, bring this snare and bring that snare and bring both kick drums, and bring like the 10 of the maple kit, and bring the 13, bring the 16 from the maple and the 18 from the recording custom kit. And then, so I'm like, okay, man, whatever. So I just bring both kits, and like, you pick what you want to hear. And we just kind of take our time and figure out what sounds best for each song. And between the two kits, like I'm really itching to get one of the hybrid oak kits that they just come out with, just for another sound. But I really don't need it. Like, these two kits give me everything I would ever need. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Do you find that you're ever running into a situation where you're rolling into a fly-in gig or whatever, and the kit's not quite as good as you'd like?
Okay, so
does that ever happen, or have you ever had that issue?
I'm going to talk about a time when I wasn't endorsed by any drum company other than Remo heads and Istanbul Mehmet cymbals. So I was still kind of like not really. I had approached the Yamaha before and got turned down.
Hadn't met Sean Brown yet.
Yeah, that's basically
Yeah.
who I approached, and I had just started with Gord Bamford, and I had a sonar
Okay.
kit. I had a sonar kit at the time, and I knew I wanted to play a Maple Custom because every time I played one, I loved it. Um, so, anyways, I got with Remo, and the same guy that was repping Remo was repping DW. So, on my tech rider, I had Maple Customs first choice, DW Collectors second choice, and Broadcasters by Gretsch third choice. And
Right.
and honestly, not trying to slag on any other company or whatever, but every time I had a DW kit, like I bet you the nicest sounding kit I ever played was a DW kit, collector series, but it was also in another city the worst sounding kit. Where
Yeah.
every time I had a Maple Custom, it was exactly the same. Like
Right.
I knew exactly what to
The
expect.
consistency in the quality of the shell or something, or just the way it
Yeah,
was just like a Friday kit versus a Monday kit.
it was kind of like I don't know if it's the way they make their shells or whatever. DW is extremely experimental and innovative,
Yeah,
and they have so many
for
different
sure.
ideas, and it's could have just been a taste thing, but I found that a collector series kit, even that's supposed to be pretty like straight ahead, could have been amazing, but it also could have been shit, like for lack of
Mm,
a better term, where Maple Custom was always at least an 8 out of a 10. Most
right,
often
right.
it was a 10 out of a 10, and you knew exactly what you were going to get. Clear emperors, coated emperors, whatever, double ply head on the
Yeah,
top, and it was just like a punch in the gut every time. And
consistency. Yeah.
that was it, man. That was it. And then Gretsch, there was only one time in probably 3 years before I was endorsed by Yamaha that it was in Toronto. I ended up playing a Broadcaster Series kit um,
Hmm.
because most often backline companies have tons of DW, tons of Yamaha, and not so much Gretsch for some reason in North
Yeah.
America. So I always found that I never ended up playing them. And so I just
Mhm.
became so unfamiliar with the hardware, and it took me just a little bit more time to like get it comfortable and whatever else. So at the end of the day, um, Greg Williamson out of Edmonton from Tupelo Honey and now Dan Davidson, uh, he ended up, we played a few shows together, and I was like gushing over how great this Maple Custom kit sounded that I had bought from Long McQuaid. And he's like, well, why don't you like get an endorsement? I was like, dude, like, tell me about it. Like, how do I do it? Like, so he became really good, or he was really good friends with Ryan Hamilton out of Toronto, who
Okay.
became the new Canadian rep. And he hooked us up, and Ryan called me, and he had just taken over Sean Brown's position and said, hey, man, talk with Greg. He says you're a good fit. He says you gush Yamaha. So I want you to be my first signing. So, and that was like the best day ever because I'd been
Oh,
waiting
that's
for that.
awesome.
I'd been waiting for that situation, whether I would have done anything for it. And it just became the right timing, right person, whatever just happened. And it was like, oh, thank God. And ever since, it doesn't matter if we're in Nashville or like going across seas, they have, we have Maple Custom kits waiting for me already. And like, I know exactly what I'm going to run into everywhere I go now because it's Yamaha. And
Mhm.
that is the most important thing for us because this last year we toured a lot. So I was able to bring my own kit, but 90% of the time we're on festivals, we're on big decks, and it's like, you never know what you're going to get. So I know that the consistency and especially artist support in the touring situation with Yamaha is second to none. So
Yeah.
for me, like it was just a
Yeah.
no brainer.
I think that's pretty as far as Canadian reps from all these companies like Yamaha, Remo, and like Pearl and Mapex.
Yeah,
All of the guys that are the ones that are the artist relations. All of them are great.
yeah,
Now
yeah,
it's not the same. You can't say the same for other places like in Europe and stuff like that, where
right.
they don't care who you are. But
Yeah,
yeah, generally, I would say that yeah, Canada's lucky that way. We've got just a great group of dudes running the community
yeah.
and really supporting you know the artists on both sides, either big or small.
And the and
So I
the
mean that's awesome.
and on top of it all, like every single company that these guys are repping have so much to brag about. Like
Oh
if
yeah, yeah.
like every single line, like whether it's Mapex, whether it's Yamaha, whether it's DW, Gretsch, Pearl,
Mhm.
Tama, all the above. they all
Yeah.
have like amazing drum kits, and then
Yeah.
you know, and everything in between, right? So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what company you're with. If you get along with your rep and if you have a good relationship with, you know, whoever's taking care of you, that's first and foremost.
It's fully,
sure.
yeah, relationship based for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's such a huge thing. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. And I think that's the biggest question that I get asked often is, Jeff, how do you get endorsements?
Yeah.
And it's one of my kind of pet peeve questions because I'm like, you know, I don't know what to say to you because I mean, it all boils down to like you got to be in the right place in the right time and be able to relate to the person. And if you don't have the ability to relate to the person, chances of you getting an endorsement are pretty low.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's playing has a lot to do with it too, but I think personality and interaction and the relationship is a big part of it. And I don't think a lot of people realize that.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, because you think about it, like if you're going to be trying to promote a certain brand, you don't pick, you know, assholes and dicks to represent you, because that doesn't attract, it just doesn't attract sales. So if you can have someone who's like got the meat, like can play the drums or the guitar or whatever it is, but also is someone that people kind of want to be around sometimes even,
totally.
you know, it's just kind of added bonus. Like Chad Melchert's a great example. Like he is like, he's a people person to the end of the day. Like he is like,
oh yeah.
He can talk to you. He can talk till he's blue in the face about whatever company he's repping at the time, right? So, and that's and he's got that skill. He's got the talent. He's got the reputation. He's got the resume. But most importantly, he's got that persona that people want to know what Chad's doing. Like, what are you playing, Chad? Like that kind of an idea, right? So
that vibe, total vibe,
And at the end of the day, it's just how do we sell more product for those companies, right?
Absolutely. So he's actually just down the street from me here. I live just off of 4th Street in like McKnight, and he's just down the street of the new MCC doing the new Gord Bamford record right now.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Been meaning to pop in there and, you know, sing backups or something horrible.
Or throw tomatoes at him.
Maybe I'll play tambourine. And maybe bring a Timmy's cup or something for them.
There you go. Bring a Yamaha Deckel and put it on his Gretsch kick drum.
Oh! I don't like to start fights like that, though. That's dangerous. And he's a big dude. He's probably bigger than me.
Yeah, I'm
definitely tougher, but he's bigger than me.
He's got Popeye forearms. His forearms are bigger than his calves, that's for sure.
It's all the you know, carrying the drums and, you know, the overall workout.
Yeah.
So what else you want to talk about? Like what cymbal company are you using right now?
These guys,
Istanbul. Sweet.
Can you see that?
And tell us why.
This guy right here. So that's Mikhail Z. So they're the family is the Zildjian family. So
right.
I don't know exactly all the details, but I was just hanging out with Nick Zildjian in the fall, and I got the deal through his dad. Who had passed away probably 2 years ago now. So his dad was a sweetheart of a man, and his name was Michael, and his uncle is this Mikhail Z. Mikhail Z was the eldest original Zildjian named cymbal maker in Turkey. So that family basically, through some sort of religious taxation, had to close down their shop, and so some of the Zildjian family came over to North America and started Zildjian the way we know it, and
then Sabian as well,
So it's kind of a long story, and I don't really know all the details because like it could be a movie based on the stories that I was hearing from. Nick. Like it's unbelievable.
It'd be way more entertaining than the Dirt movie, I bet.
Yeah. Who knows, right? So it's kind of I don't know if, like I said, like I just kind of got the Cole's Notes version of a lot of things, but the Zildjian family kind of got stripped of their own name.
Mhm.
And then they came across seas and the spelling changed a couple times and whatever else. So Mike Zildjian, who ended up signing me to this company, Istanbul Mehmet, was a nephew of Mikhail Zilkan.
Okay.
So it was like Zilcan, where Mike Zildjian is Zildjan, but it's the same family. Weird.
Wow.
So, anyways,
Yeah.
Mikhail Z was like the eldest symbol maker from the Zildjian family. And he asked Mike, because Mike moved over and tried to, I think he was part of the Zilkan symbol company and something else. And it all fell through because he was working, he was kind of like job shadowing or interning in the States. I think it was Boston or something like that. And he went to go apply for his visa. And they had found out that he was working without a visa, so they gave him 24 hours or 48 hours to like leave the country. So then he moved up to New Brunswick, and he ended up becoming an RCMP officer.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, he did that. He did that for 35 years and had kids and got married and whatever else, and then he retired. And then Mikhail Z contacted him and said, "Hey, we want to like spread, the Istanbul name." Because at that point, Istanbul changed from just Istanbul symbols to Istanbul Mehmet and Istanbul Egop. So Istanbul Mehmet was kind of the smaller of the two, and they wanted to start distributing in North America. So Mike basically started Canada, and obviously a proud rep because his family's name was all over it.
Yeah.
So this Mikhail Z ride was one of the first ones that they just basically handed me a bag and said, try this out for, the summer. And I honestly didn't hear anything for about a year. And I was kind of like, oh, I got a free bag of symbols, like kind of feeling like I robbed them almost. And then Mike called me and said, hey, we like what you're doing. We want you to become part of the family, blah, blah, blah. So I was super honored. And like these symbols, like, again, I don't want to whatever, but it opened my eyes to how good a symbol can sound and the idea of turning up your overhead monitors, your overhead mics, right? And turning them up because it's such a pleasant sound. It's not like
musical,
abrasive, and it's like warm and musical, and it's a lot of character in these symbols. So I just lucked out with that. Like honestly, we were playing in Darwell in Alberta, and it was one of my first Brett gigs, and Matty Harris, who was kind of like Alberta's rep at the time, kind of just showed up to the Brett Kissel gig, and all he knew is that he wanted to give Brett Kissel's drummer, whether it was me or the previous guy or whoever, wanted me to try out the cymbals, or whoever was playing drums for Brett. And I was just lucky that it was me. And I forget what cymbals I was playing at the time. I think I had some Sabian, some Zildjian, whatever. And I put this ride up, and I looked at Justin, and I was like, and he looked at me the same way. He's like, dude, what is that? I was like, I don't know, but it's amazing. So played with it for that show. And then there was a couple like Desert Island ride cymbals that I had on our Tech Rider. And I come across a couple of them. One time was in Sherwood Park, I think, or Spruce Grove outside of Edmonton. And I was like, okay, well, I was already repping these guys, and I was like, okay, I just want to just play sound check with this cymbal that I've always loved. I think it was like a K dark session riders. I don't know what it was, but 22 inch. It was like what I thought was my Desert Island ride cymbal. And I was like playing, I was like, this is awesome. And then Justin's like, hey man, can you put the Mikhail Z ride back up? I just want to hear the difference. I put it back up, and I was like, man, this just like puts it to shame. Like this ride, for some reason, like I've played a bunch of these Istanbul Mehmet rides because I use a bunch of them for crashes, and they're all great. But this one in particular, for some reason, it just has exactly what I'm looking for. And I hope I never break it, because every one of these cymbals is hand hammered and whatever. And
finding that alloy again might be a little tough.
Yeah, no two are the same, right? So this is my new Desert Island ride cymbal for sure.
Yeah,
and
it is awesome when you find that. Yeah,
playing a Turk 20-inch crash, and this is an
nice.
Origin Dark 20-inch crash, and then I'm playing just what are these, traditional? No, I forget the name of those. 15-inch. Can't remember the name, but I normally play Turk 15-inch hats just because they have that barky low mid to them.
Yeah. Well, I think the bigger the hats too, like there was a gig that I was working on, and there was a drummer using 18-inch crashes put together, matched to be hi-hats. And it was the first time I'd seen an 18-inch.
Yeah.
And I was asking him, I'm like, so what's the deal there? And he goes, well, because of the size of it, the shrill of it isn't as high.
Yeah.
So when you're wide open, it doesn't seem as loud. So it's an illusion that makes it seem like it's not as loud because it's in a lower frequency.
It's 100%.
So yeah, 15-inch hats totally make sense for country because then you can blend it in, but still have that power and high if you need it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. No, I love them.
Yeah.
And like these are now my smallest hi hats is a 15-inch, and I have, like, I use, I don't know if you can see those.
Mm-hmm.
So those are 19-inch effects crashes.
Oh.
They're called X-ray crashes, and I use those over on my right side as like auxiliary hats, like a little like this far open. So it's kind of like it's got like a really crunchy, dirty sound. Yeah, but it's also smooth and warm. It's like a China. It's like in between a China and a crash cymbal. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
you can ride on it, and you can use it just for like exclamation points or whatever. But
right.
Yeah, that works great.
Are you using any electronics in your setup at all?
Well, I have a couple triggers that I was going to use for the tour, but the only effect that I really use, because we have tracks for a lot of the stuff, I just use my second snare. Just has a little 8-inch splash on it, and it'll sit like right here kind of thing, and I just have the splash cymbal sitting off to the side, and I just hit the remainder of the head, and it just kind of gives like a synthetic sound.
Yeah,
and it's
kind of a hand clappy sound. Yeah, that's a common thing. That's an old Johnny Rab trick from way back.
It works like a charm, and like I just I'm not super technically savvy or electronically savvy, so if I can just like know for sure that I can get a sound acoustically, I'm just gonna stick with that until it's absolutely necessary. Like I would love to get into one of those octapads or whatever they're called, to get samples going and stuff like that. That'd be awesome. But I just never have been kind of forced into that yet. So
now, talking about the tracks, like are you the start and stop point, or is that Bundy's job?
No, that's me. Unless it's like
that is you, okay.
Unless it's like televised, then James will, there'll be a whole setup and a cue, and James is the one that starts it because I'm supposed to look like it's magic and it's
supposed to look like it's natural.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta look into the camera and give that illustrious hi.
Yeah.
So when you're doing that, like, give us a breakdown of that, because that is something that everybody does a little bit differently, and I'm always curious because I've never been in a situation where I've used tracks where it was like track with like a click embedded in it.
Yeah.
Is that how you do it?
Yeah. So again, like, because I'm not electronically or technically savvy to the point where I could run, like we used to, like when I was with Gord, we ran a Motu system with like 8 separate track lines where you could actually mix like the steel that wasn't even there. You could have more or less of it, or you could have the percussion up or down. So it gave me a headache a couple times. And for me, that was a couple times too many. And so Justin Cutting, thankfully, being on the same kind of wavelength, in these throw and go situations, you want simple and effective.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, the tracks don't have to be necessarily like stereo and like all this magical stuff happening, because the band is a 7-piece band. Like we just want to fill up a little bit of the low end and have some synth happening or whatever. Like the band is sufficient enough that we don't need the tracks necessarily. So as long as we get those drum loops that are necessary kind of coming out of the front of the house, we've got between Justin Cutting, Spencer Sheen, and Jeff Dalziel out of Toronto. They've been the ones that have mixed our backing tracks into, like, it's a stereo track on the left or on the right side and a click on the left side. And
Yeah,
it's just,
that's common. Yeah.
so you just pan it hard, I guess. And for me, I just run a thing called Sound Q, Sound and then CUE. It's just it was like a $10 app. I think I got it for free at the time. Steve Broders is the one that exposed it to me. And it's basically you press a button, like it shows up as like a grid. There's 4 buttons and then another 4 and then another 4, and you have like 15 pages for options. So you can run a lot of tracks. And you just press the button, and it just, when the song is done, it just stops. It doesn't go to the next song like it might in iTunes or whatever else, right?
Right. Yeah.
You just press the button. You don't have to look at it again until you're ready to press the next button. So for me, that was like,
allow for anything in between. That's cool.
Yeah. So it's super easy to run. And honestly, they sound great. Like, we have Joel Bird running in front of the house, and he is a magician.
He's a monster. That guy's a monster.
Especially for drummers. So good. Like,
yeah.
Like,
that guy,
he wants
that guy.
He wants to walk away black and blue from the drum kit, So he And then James Bundy running monitors for us, who's
a drummer as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and he knows. You
got the deck stacked. The deck is stacked.
I got a lot of secret weapons for sure.
Yeah, no kidding.
So everyone knows how it's supposed to sound, and I just basically have to hit the drums how I know how to hit them, play in time, press the button at the right time, and see at the end. Like, it's pretty simple.
And look good. You gotta look good too. That's part of the deal. You gotta look good.
Yeah.
Now, when you're going back to the tracks there, what are you using like for? Are you using like a MacBook or something, or are you looking?
Just an iPad. Like, I have.
iPad. Oh wow.
I have a little setup that has. It's like basically a little briefcase that's maybe 15 inches wide by not even 12 deep, and it's like got a fold up thing, and it folds down. So I fold up the lid, and I set my tracks iPad on the back side, put my metronome iPad on the bottom, have a little mixer on the other side of the tray. In between, I have 2 DIs. One DI is just a mono DI that runs my metronome to the monitor board, and also I take it through into my own mixer.
So you send it out to everybody's ears?
I send it to James, and whoever wants it can take it. So, and same with the click or with the tracks. Like, that goes into a stereo DI, left and right. Left is click, right is tracks, and then I can take the through into my own mixer. So I have control. If worst case scenario, if James ends up getting like attacked by a cougar in northern Alberta, and we have no monitor tech, I have control over the tracks and the click. So, we're safe. Worst case scenario, I have control over those volumes, and if I have those, I can count the band in, and we're going to be fine. So
that's awesome. Yeah, fail safes all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, and everyone can have more click or more tracks or more metronome, like the 2 different metronomes kind of thing. So some guys love it, and sometimes James will ride it for Brett. Some songs he starts acoustically, and to eliminate the too excited or too sluggish, we just give him the click to reference, so he's at least close, and then we just take it from there. And Brett really does have great timing. So if he just gets an idea of how fast it should be, like, he can play to a click and play like nice to a click, like with like give it like movement still and just a little bit behind, and not rush and not like not feel angst on it. He's really good at that. So he starts the songs that way, and then James will just kind of fade it out in his ears. Meanwhile, everyone else will have it, and we all just kind of are on the same page. And I'm not keeping time on the hats. I'm not having to give him any sense of time. He's just hearing it from the metronome that I'm sending him, right? So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
little secrets. Yeah. That does answer a lot of things. Like, I think a lot of people don't realize just how much goes into like that level of playing, and as far as that stuff goes. I mean, without it, you're pulling time out of thin air, and if you're feeling amped that day and you're really excited, suddenly it's going to be like Kiss in 1978, where
Yeah.
Detroit Rock City was like, you know, instead of the normal,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
no pocket, it's just pure energy,
Yeah. Exactly.
which is not a bad thing. But at the same time, if you're trying to rally like a 7-piece band, I mean, you got to make sure that everybody's in that comfortable
Yeah.
spot that they're starting and they're not really rushing. So
Well.
yeah, I can totally see how that would be such a huge asset to that. And yeah,
Yeah.
and again, to the common folk that are watching, they have no idea,
Yeah. And
not a clue, you know?
it's kind of the smoke and mirrors thing, and then it takes away the second, like this like self doubt of, especially as a drummer. Sometimes, like you said, without a metronome, you're really relying on being able to be aware of your current mood and current energy levels, and being able to like adjust to then have a clear reference of where you know the song should be. So instead of that, having a metronome, it's like, okay, now I know exactly this. Even if it feels slow, I know for a fact this is where the song needs to be, regardless of how I'm feeling. So I better get into this right now without any kind
Yeah,
of second guessing, and I can play
yeah,
confidently without worrying about it, right?
trust it.
And
Yeah,
then
trusting it.
knowing when I go on Instagram later that night and I see the videos of us playing, it's not going to be like you said, Detroit Rock City at like Mock Chicken. So
Yeah. It's funny how whenever I reference that, everybody knows exactly what I
yeah,
mean.
yeah,
Because I
yeah,
mean that recording, that live recording, I guess 78 or whatever, was like through the roof. And when you
yeah,
compare it to the actual recording, it's like you have no idea. I
yeah,
mean, both sound great in different ways. I guess
yeah.
it's an energy thing.
It's a different
But
song.
yeah, yeah. But there's, the pyro guy is probably panicking at that point, going, "Oh my God, how am I going
Yeah.
to?" I missed the fire point, and the fire is behind Gene, and it looks weird.
Yeah.
I can see that being a big thing. I've also
Yeah.
heard of previous bands, other bands that actually use cues within the metronome for harmonies.
Oh,
So they'll have not necessarily a pad sequence, but
yeah.
they'll actually have somebody going ha on the note
Oh,
or whatever the note is, just for that
yeah.
beginning, just right before it cues in.
Yeah. So
So
the only
I've
the
heard
only
of that
time
before too.
the only time we've ever used that is for the Canada Games in Red Deer, like a month ago. We
Right,
it was like for TSN or whatever, and I think we played 3 songs and 2 of them were televised. So the second song,
right,
it was like finish the song and then an audible count, like 1, 2, like in the ears. And
right.
then it was like Brett had to start singing like right now. So after the first song, there was like a pitch reference. There's like a weird like, and we're all kind of like, and then that's how Brett knew what note to sing without
Hmm.
without reference of a guitar or whatever, right? So
Well, yeah, because that one's coming in cold, right? If you're
yeah,
coming in cold like that, you absolutely need it.
so
The other thing I've heard too is uh, on bands that are quite large that tour like relentlessly and probably should stop touring
yeah,
and have this is the band. I'm not going to say who it is, but I'll say that I know that having heard a sound check where they had the in-ears through the mains because the front of house guy was checking something on it and they were playing the tracks through the mains with the click and
yeah,
all of the cues. Today's city is Calgary
yeah, yeah, yeah,
within the track.
yeah,
So it's like so, but it was like, are you guys ready to rock? Calgary.
yeah. See,
And then to me that is like when I heard that it was like pure gold, and I
yeah,
couldn't stop laughing
yeah.
because I
See,
was like, it's gotten to that point, and yeah, and that band doesn't tour anymore, or they're not supposed to. They signed a contract. I'm not going to say who it is.
yeah. So that's another reason that backs up the idea of keeping your backing track situation as simple as possible.
Yeah, totally.
Then that never happens, right? So when you got 47 cables just for like fake instruments, it's a little bit much, and sometimes it can get mixed up. So
Oh yeah,
we'll
for sure.
just stick to 2, you know,
Yeah,
left and
that's
right.
simplicity is always the best, man. Simplicity is
Yeah,
always the best.
yeah.
Now, speaking of simplicity, have you ever done any of these gigs with like a 4-piece kit or anything like that?
Oh yeah, lots.
Yeah.
Most of my freelance stuff and most of my session stuff, honestly, is on like kick, snare, tom tom. It's
Right.
yeah, because it's like
Beauty.
the two toms are like, yeah, like let's make the place rumble, and like there's a little bit more options available, but you can get away with most ideas in the studio and otherwise with a 4-piece kit. Because like I said
Totally.
earlier, it's not about the blujdas and the hurtas and the 6-stroke rolls and all that stuff. It's about boom smack, like
Yeah, the
doom cut
dance.
doom,
Yeah.
like Pat Boone, Debbie Boone, like it's not complicated stuff. Making it feel
No.
good and making it musical is where the money's at. Like it's not about doing the Bonham triplets for 37
Hmm.
seconds. So yeah, two toms is typically enough, and the odd time, if there's going to be some sort of orchestrated tom part, yeah, maybe we'll
Hmm.
do 3 or 4 toms, but not in a typical
Yeah.
situation.
Like if suddenly you have to do like a Phil Collins set.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just another Tuesday. Yeah.
Let's face it, that will never happen.
Yeah. Well, I'd be
Yeah.
all about it though. I'd be all about it. That'd be awesome.
Awesome. Now, who would you say are your influencers that have got that? I guess your main influence for getting into it, and what's kind of what brought you in the beginning?
Matthew Atkins, 100%.
Matthew Atkins.
Like
Cool.
if it wasn't for Matthew Atkins, I would have been done at the age of 21, and I would have been moving on to other things. I was playing for Aaron Goodwin at the time with Matty McKay and Dylan Gillette on bass, and we had a fiddle player named Catherine. And at the time, we were at the Palomino Saloon in Sherwood Park, opening for Diane Chase, which was amazing at the time. This was 2004, the year I graduated high school. And Matthew Atkins was playing drums for Diane Chase. And I had my Canwood drum kit there, and I was really proud of this Canwood drum kit. The toms actually sounded really good. The kick was okay, and the hardware was absolute shit, but whatever. The drums
Yeah.
sounded good. So Matthew shows up, and he didn't bring a kit, and he was under the impression there was going to be backline kits. I was like, well, just use mine. It's amazing. So he sat down. And he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. This is cool. And we started talking drum gear and just like hit it off like that. And
That's
he's like,
awesome.
why don't we get together one of these days? And I ended up, telling a friend later on, and that Matthew Atkins took his time out for me and just like came over. I was still living at mom's place, and like he came over after school to basically show me different ways to do a paradiddle and how to write where the kick drum note sits and where the snare drum note sits, and how to divide a bar into quarter notes and eighth notes, and like basically how to read and write notation. And he just came out of the goodness of his heart. And it was, looking back, it's something that completely set me up for success. Because after playing for Aaron Goodwin and Craig Moritz and then Marley Scott, it was like, okay, I'm just freelancing now. Oh, wait, you have to learn 40 songs every week. How do you
Yeah.
do that? Right? It's just off memory and repetition, especially for a drummer that the only experience I had was playing like rodeo cabarets and nightclubs and whatever across Western Canada, just playing country songs, like not really doing much,
Right.
like, educated drumming. So with the ability to like write out easy charts that I could actually read and execute a set list within a short amount of time, that 100%, that credit goes 100% to Matthew Atkins to take the time to show me, how Chattahoochee by Alan Jackson looks like, what it looks like on paper. And I was like,
Right.
and then he would give me a song to chart, and then I would chart it out, and he would come back the next week, and we'd go over it, and he'd be like, okay, well, that there's only supposed to be 4 quarter notes in 4/4 time, so you have 7 here. That's not right. So then we'd go over it, and
That's awesome, man. That's a huge
yeah.
gift.
So
That is.
yeah,
That's a huge gift.
so that was huge for me. And then through those years of reading charts and freelancing, in turn, I was put in a lot of situations that, first of all, would have been impossible otherwise, but second of all, were extremely beneficial for the education of being a freelance musician, and it set me up for success. And then I just ended up saying yes to everything because I could do it. I was able to, and you meet people, and you meet the right person at the right time, and you end up with this gig, and then that leads to this gig and whatever else, and then all of a sudden, like just because of that, 6-week period with Matthew Atkins in my mom's basement when I was 19 years old, like the rest is history. So I mean, and then since then, I mean, like Mark Branconi has been huge. Chad Melcher's been a huge help. The list goes on and on. Steve Broadhurst. I've admired Randy Cook from a distance.
Randy's awesome.
Forever. Chris Sutherland, like Jerry Adolph. Like if you want to talk shuffles, talk to Jerry. Like it's just Canadian. Joey McIntyre out of Edmonton. Like that guy, he's got more capacity than I think anyone I've ever met. As far as like, okay, like if you give me like room to play, like give me a drum solo and he'll blow your mind off. Like playing different time signatures. He's got so much feel when he wants to. He's got so much capacity when he wants to, but he can keep it tight and he can keep it just greasy. Like he can play blues like a mother and play rock really well and play country really well. So yeah, Joey was a good educator as well. So not to mention John Bonham and Jeff Picaro and Steve Gadd and those guys, right? But
the essentials.
Yeah, exactly. The guys that you watch play and then they just make you want to quit, and But,
that happens for sure.
And then the Matthew Atkins come around and say, "No, you can do it. You can actually do this."
Yeah.
Okay.
That is such a huge thing, and you know what? I think the drumming community, especially in the kind of circles that you and I are both run in, I think there's a lot of camaraderie. There's not that same thing in like guitar players or bass players. Not there is to an extent, but not quite like drummers.
Right.
Like I think doing this show actually has been pretty interesting because I've reached out quite a bit further than I thought was possible, and a lot of the reaction's been really positive.
Yeah,
and again, it just boils down to like, I'll talk about drums.
Yeah, exactly. Finally,
they're like, I can't believe this is happening. And it's like, to me, it just shows again that the community is so accepting and supportive of everything. Like it doesn't matter, what you're doing, as long as you're doing,
Yeah,
so
man.
I mean, that's a huge thing. That is such a huge thing. And again, I don't think it's common for outside of drums as much as it is in drums.
Well, it comes down to like I think with drums I think a little bit more so than most instruments. And I mean, this could be totally ignorant, but how do I say this? Like everyone's got their own, like the monkey beat, just like quarter notes, boom, smack. Like you could put 100 drummers in the same room playing that same thing technically, and every single drummer will sound so different. You know what I mean?
You know what?
Like
this is the third time that's come up in the third episode of this. Where it comes up and everybody's got their thumbprint. Yeah. Jerry Tolan just popped on. He was talking about that and selling beer because that's our job as a drummer is to sell beer. So
shake the bum, man. Shake the bums, swig the beers. Yeah. And so I think, and in knowing that, like, I know that no one can play like Ben Bradley better than Ben Bradley. No one can play like Chad Melcher better than Chad Melcher. No one can play like Matthew Atkins better than Matthew Atkins. No one can play like Jeff Towers like Jeff Towers. You know what I mean? So if someone wants that voice, hey, man, it's not a competition. We're all so different, and we're all after the same thing. So, like, we've all got our own thing. And I think it only adds to the big picture of musical diversity and keeping music interesting and real and live, like not just on the grid, So like I just started.
Speaking of on the grid, going back to the tracks again. In some situations where you're extending a song, how do you do that with tracks? Like, do you guys do that, or is it just
Yep.
the end is where the end is every time?
Well, there's a couple songs that have like started with a song. It used to be
Right.
it used to be the set opener, and now it's been it was kind of like it was the end of the set, and then it was also an encore. So we've got
Oh, the
like
money track. Yeah, it's a
yeah,
big money track.
it's just
Yeah.
a big rock kind of a thing. So we've got like 5 different versions, but every version has there's an ending, but it's not like so robust that if the band doesn't stop at that time, like the way we have it now is that it's at the end of the show, and it's designed to walk Brett off. So we're playing the song, and if it goes like according to plan, which is like really not a big deal, we'll
Right.
end on the end of the track, big trash can ending, and great, and then
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. But most often Brett gets excited and he wants to throw T-shirts and throw hats and
Yeah, he's high-fiving the whole front
yeah,
row and doing the whole
yeah,
day. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
kiss babies and whatever else, and so it goes for like sometimes it goes forever, and I'm like sweating, like waiting for him to be finished so he can actually like put a stamp on it. And sometimes
Yeah.
it goes forever, and we just kind of just hang on and keep cycling the chord progression and solo and whatever else, and then
So is everybody like, are you the lead on that point, or who's the lead on that point?
so
Like, who's deciding when? Okay,
yeah,
now that we see that he's obviously hitting the wall and leaving the stage, who is the one that is the guy that says, "All right,
Justin.
here's the wrangling it in"?
Yeah,
Justin is okay.
Justin is the band leader, and he'll give me a heads up, and then it's like audibly like kind of my job to like put it.
1, 2,
Yeah,
yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I mean.
bringing
So,
it in, yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
he's the one that says, okay, this time around we're gonna finish. So then he goes to the front of the stage and shakes his butt or whatever, and
yeah,
throws kisses out to the crowd or whatever. But
yeah.
it's his job as the band leader to say, okay, this makes sense, and he's got like a superhuman sense of timing, like when it comes to like that kind of thing. Way
Yeah,
better
yeah,
than way better than mine. Like he's just got a really good idea of how the show should flow, you know.
yeah.
So we're just kind of all looking at him, waiting for him to be like, "Okay, boys, let's do it now." We're like, "Yeah," like you know.
Yeah.
So he's
So
the one that
when
kind of.
when the band started, how was it established who was going to play what role as far as that goes?
Well,
Like,
that's a tricky
when
thing
you're starting a
because
band, how do you determine who is going to be the music director, I guess?
okay, so you've got to have, in my opinion, this is just me, but it works perfectly in this situation. In my opinion, a band leader has to have equal parts musicality and musical knowledge. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and he's also got to have equal parts leadership skills and communication skills. And
Right.
um, he's got to be very efficient in both, or sufficient in both, we'll say. So for me, I know drum theory, but I don't know for a second what chord Maddie's playing in the bridge when it goes to the 4 or whatever. Like I don't even attempt to ask me where that's going to go. I feel like I have some leadership skills, and I think I have leadership skills in some levels, but I don't have the music knowledge to that capacity that would allow me
Right.
to be the band leader. So right away, I knew that. So I basically, not that it was up to me anyways, but like I knew right away that it wasn't for me, and I don't know if it ever would be for me. It might down the road, but for now, I don't have enough like stringed instrument knowledge to basically be able to tell the bass player what to do and the piano player what to do. So
Right.
Justin's got a really strong vocabulary when it comes to musicality and music theory, with vocals as well. And he's also an extremely effective communicator. He knows how to get what he wants. Not only what he wants, but he knows how to get the best out of the people around him. So he's able to speak
Yeah.
your language. He's able to speak your language and make you feel like it was your idea, kind of a thing, you know.
That's awesome.
So
That is awesome.
yeah, he's
Man, it sounds like you got one hell of a crew there, man. And that's pretty rare. That is pretty rare.
And it all starts with Bretsky.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I caught a sound check where you guys were retooling something. I think it was the Brad Paisley show during Stampede this last year.
Yeah.
And yeah, just being a fly on the wall, and yeah, just the communication skills on tweaking, a part very accurately was
Yeah.
the only way to describe it. Like it was like precision, and just watching him explain it, and then like you guys hit it on the first go, and I'm just like, holy crap! Like,
Yeah, and it's because
and again, it's communication and
yeah.
knowing each other, I guess,
Yeah, because I mean, the slang of the music industry is vast. Like, and the way I would say something might be different than the way Maddie would say it, and different than the way Tyler would say it. But Justin is like, okay, boys, like a robot, talking like, at this time and blah, 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 we're going to do this at this quarter note, and then we're going to push on this bar, and we're going to do this, and you're going to be on this note, and Brendan, I want you to play this at this, and he's got all these like, scientific explanations. So we're all like, yeah, I get what he's saying, but no one else understood what he was saying until they get to his part, so Justin's he's got a good knowledge of every instrument, so.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Again, that's pretty rare too. I mean, to find somebody in a project that is that well-rounded. Mm-hmm. That's another gift. Man, you're getting gifts all over the place here, man. It's like it's Christmas.
Yeah, I'm a lucky dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many kids you got now?
Two. One is Emmy is 3 years old. She turned 3 in December. And now Elodie. Yeah. So Emmerly and Elodie. So Elodie, we call her Ella, and she's like 10 weeks, 11 weeks old. And
oh wow.
Yeah, she's been just gulping it down. Like, she's gaining like a pound a week. She was like,
oh wow,
1 day premature. Like, so there's like 37 weeks is full term. 40 weeks is like your due date. So 37 weeks, she was 36 days and 36 weeks and 6 days. So like 12 hours premature. So we ended up staying in the hospital for 4 days. But honestly, she was like, Emmy was not premature. She was like maybe 2 weeks early, something like that. And and Emmy had some fluid in her lungs, and she had to go to the ICU for like 6 hours. And it doesn't seem like much in hindsight, but at the time I was like, what's happening? Like, who made a mistake? Yeah. Like this, like you just get this like primal instinct to like protect your own kind of a thing. So it was really stressful. Yeah. And so I was kind of worried about something similar happening, but Elodie comes out and she was like drinking milk within the first hour, like, which is unheard of. Well,
she's like, what's up, Dad? What's going on?
Yeah. She had a big full head of hair of black hair, which is nice to know that it was
of course
mine. Because I was away a lot last year, so
yeah. No, well, I gotta say, you got the best hair in the industry right now in Canada.
Oh, thanks, man.
You know that though. I'm pretty sure you know that.
Well, I
mean, the only other person that comes close is Brad Stella.
Yeah.
But his is like another 6 inches higher than yours. So I think that one has that's a different category.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's the OG for sure.
Yeah, the OG of the big hair country guy.
Yeah, totally.
That's funny. Crazy. Man. Well, let's see how are we doing for time here? Oh yeah, we're way over. Whoa, we're way over. 8:30 almost.
Holy
almost
moly.
8:30.
Well, this has been fun,
we should
man.
Probably wrap this up.
It's been a lot of fun.
We got a lot of people. Apparently, there's a lot of your family on here that's been watching, so that's cool.
Hey, fam.
And a lot of local drummers and a lot of all over Canada, and I think I got a couple of Americans on here too. So, again, man, thank you for doing this. This is great.
My pleasure.
And I'm stoked to see you doing so well, man. It's pretty cool.
Thanks so much, man.
And I'm sure.
I'll talk drums with you anytime. So just if you ever have a down week and you need someone to fill some space,
we'll have another one. Maybe we'll have to find a new topic. We'll have to find a new topic. Maybe like hairstyling or
beards
or something.
We could do like
race.
Yeah.
We'll race. I'll shave, and we'll both start at the same time, and then reconvene 6 weeks after.
Yeah, so we'll do like one on what to do with a beard, and then what not to do with a beard. So
you're still young, son. You're still young. You don't need to worry about it yet. This is to hide things. It hides, it
it hides stuff, right? That's what we do. That's
Hey,
Melchard showed me that trick.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah, he's got a good
Awesome.
beard too.
Well, again, thank you for joining us, man. This is great.
Hey,
I'm
my
going to
pleasure.
post this up and share it all out, and I'll send you a link to it. And
Awesome.
thanks to everybody who is checking it out and in the future checking it out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This is great.
Keep
Thanks a
following.
lot, Jeff.
Keep on. Cheers, man. You
We'll
have a
talk to you
great
soon.
night. Say hi to the kids and the family.
Will do.
Okay.
Have a good night.
You too.